It's Wednesday, August 27th, and this morning there was another school shooting in Minneapolis that I did a couple of videos about. I think 20 people were shot, 3 adults were injured, survived, 2 children were killed, 8 and 10 years old. The other 14 or 15 kids, including 2 who were in critical condition, are expected to survive. All of that is horrific, but I made the point in one of my earlier videos that it's like this is who there is nothing more American than this. They were in a chapel in a Catholic church at a private Catholic school. They were praying. They were starting their first day of school, and they were starting their first day of school with mass. And a gunman came up outside the building and fired at these children who were sitting in church pews, staring up, looking at Jesus Christ on the wall. The gunman fired at them from the outside of the building through the windows with an AR-15 type rifle. And the gunman had written some really horrific things in a white marker on their weapon, like 6 million wasn't enough. But again, today was another perfect example of how Republicans, the MAGA base, right-wing media, doesn't give 2 shits about victims. They only care about perps. The shooter was a trans woman, had been born male, and when they were 17, changed their name, I think from Richard to Robin, and changed their gender identity and was living as a woman after having been born biologically male. Everybody on the right, all the MAGA chuds, right-wing media, they're leading with the shooter was trans. Not leading with the shooter had written 6 million is not enough on their gun and other horrific anti-Semitic racist things. But Republicans, the MAGA base, they only care about the perps in these kinds of crimes. And I've said this multiple times before. A couple years ago, a young woman was horrifically and tragically murdered by an undocumented immigrant. Because she was murdered by an undocumented immigrant, we all know her name. Her name is Laken Riley. And despite her family begging Republican politicians not to politicize her murder, earlier this year they passed the Laken Riley Act. They didn't pass the Laken Riley Act because this young woman was murdered. They passed the Laken Riley Act because she was murdered by an undocumented immigrant. When the perp fits their political narrative, that's what they care about. And that is what they care about with today's school shooting. These elementary school kids, their first day of school at a Catholic school, sitting in church, beginning their day with a Catholic mass, and a gunman opened fire on them through the windows. The gunman was outside the building. The gunman was trans. And that's what they care about. That's what they care about. It has the added benefit of they don't have to launch into their typical narrative when there's a school shooting. It's too soon to talk about gun control. Don't politicize this by talking about gun control. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. They get to leapfrog over all of that stuff and say the shooter was trans, the shooter was trans, the shooter was trans, the shooter was trans. And that's all I've heard from them all day long. They do not care about the victims. They only care about the perps, especially when the shooter fits their narrative, as we saw today. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.